Hey guys, it's Mark Pearson here again with footprint-productions.com. We're going to try and do a little quick tip. I got a question on Facebook on how to do the HDRI Gumballs video that Nick Campbell put out. This video here, take a look at it. We've got some gumballs that come flying in, rolling in. They attract up into, form a letter, they drop down. And then another group, likely another set of cloners, gets cloned onto a different letter. You can do this with thinking particles, but I think this example was probably done with cloners. So I'll show you how to do it. I've got a little pre-render here that I put together, kind of the same concept. They drop down, they come back up as a different letter. So I'll show you how to build that here. Let's take a look. You'll notice in my hierarchy I have a spline effector null object and object mode null object. The spline effector version is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is putting the cloner in the object mode. I'm going to show you the object mode first, and if we have time we'll go back and explain the spline effector mode. So to build it you'll need a cloner object with a set of spheres in it. Put as many in here as you want to give it as much variety as you'd like to have. You can texture them differently. You'll need an extrude NURBS with a text object in the middle to provide our object to clone onto. So you'll notice with this little red circle the text object is animated, and that's how we change the letter. Again, the cloner, if you go into the object tab, is in the mode of object, and the object we're referring to is the text extrude NURB. Okay, so let's start a new scene and we'll show you how to build that. Alright, Control N to start a new scene, and like I mentioned we'll need a text object, and we'll put the letter H on that. Really don't care about the font. We'll click the text object, hold down Alt, and add an extrude NURB. Okay, so that will give us the thickness we're looking for and the volume that we're looking for. Okay, we will also need a sphere, of course. Where is it? There it is. And let's drop that way down to about a radius of 3 and a segment of 3. Okay, so that way it keeps it nice and low poly. With the sphere selected, hold down the Alt or Option and click the cloner. Okay, and that puts it in the cloner. As mentioned, we'll put that cloner in object mode. Okay, and take the text and drop that as the object of the cloner. Okay, you automatically see something happening. We can now hold down Alt or Option and double click these traffic lights to turn that off. We don't need it because we have a cloner, and we'll put the distribution, this is the key, to volume. Nothing big happening there. You're thinking, what's going on? Well, let's crank this up to about 800, and there you go. Now, the beauty of this, in my mind, over the spline effector technique, is that now I can still extrude NURBS out and make this thicker. Of course, you have to add more clones, but as you can see, we get a more dynamic build. Okay, you can start building geometry out of spheres, and that's cool. Just, you know, that's just cool. Let's see, let's move on. Let's drop that extrusion back to 20 because that's a decent number. Put the cloner back to 800 just to keep it. Let's go 1,000. We want more. 1,000, I said. Okay. Now we'll need a floor, so click this icon here once, and that adds a floor. Right click on it. Simulation collider body. We want something to bounce off of, and what we want to bounce are the spheres. Okay, well, you can put the tag on either one of these, the cloner or the child. If you put it on the child, every child has to have one, okay, of that cloner. If you put it on the cloner, you can right click simulation rigid body, make sure to go to collision and individual elements to top level. That way when you hit play, explodes, they all drop. if it's not on top level, you'll get a chunk of cloner dropping to the ground, which is not what we're looking for. Now that we've gotten that far, it's time to start animating this. Now, the reason that those spheres drop to the ground dynamically is because they're supposed to. They have a dynamics tag. But you can control that. So follow position, rotation, damping, all of these are keys to controlling that MoGraph dynamics here. So let's raise that follow position up to about 8 and see what happens. Hit play. Alright, we're going back up to the letter. It's a little squashy at the bottom. We'll drop it and pull it up to 10. Okay, and you can also raise that text object up, that extrude NURBS, and there you go. Okay, so even while that's playing, we can drop that to 0, and they drop to the ground, spread on out. We can drop that to 10, and there you go. So that's the effect. You animate this property, and then, as I mentioned earlier, hinted to, you can animate the text. So while the spheres are on the ground, you make a keyframe and animate your text object here, and when the spheres come back up, they'll be in a different shape. So let's try it. So go back to frame 0, and let's go to the dynamics tag on the cloner and do a follow position of 10. Why not? Except we want this keyframe. Let's grab it and drag it to about 40. Okay, so at 40 it has a follow position of 10. That means it's sticking to the extrude NURBS. Go 1 frame forward, set that to, let's go 0, why not? And so they'll drop, okay, and then at 70, we'll set a keyframe, go 1 frame forward, and set that back to 10. Alright, and give us 200 frames on the timeline, expand that out, rewind, hit play. So it drops, comes back up, and there you go. Now if we click in these little dashes and drag, we can select those keyframes. Let's spread them out to give us some more space, because about in this area I want to animate my text. From H, go 1 frame forward, and let's just say hi. Let's make a lowercase and see what it does. And control click to make a keyframe. Yeah, that's gonna be cool. There we go. And here goes the H. It's gonna drop. There it goes. It's on the ground. And change to the I. And there it is. Okay. Meanwhile, your camera can be zooming around doing whatever it wants to do, but that is pretty much it. You know, you can come in, you can add some turbulence, some wind, some random effectors, and really get dynamic with this thing. And so anyway, that's pretty much it. The HDRI gumball technique, I guess, is what we can call it. I guess we can ask Nick if that's what we can call it, the HDRI gumball technique. But there it is. I hope that helps some guys out. Before I forget, let's real quick look at the other file and show you the effector mode side of this. Okay, let's turn all that off. Okay, in this hierarchy, you will see, let's jump off this camera, we've got a spline. Okay, that's our text spline. Simple letter, same technique, animated. When the spheres are on the ground, that changes, yada yada. The difference is the cloner is set to grid array in the mode with 8 by 8 by 8, okay, to give us plenty of clones. And then we added an effector to this cloner, and that's the spline effector. Okay, that can be found under MoGraph, effector, spline effector. Okay. In this spline effector, we drop this text object as the spline right there. And that tells this cloner that is being affected by this effector, put your clones on this spline. Okay? Essentially the same thing we were doing before. But because it's a spline, you don't get control over that depth. You don't get the option to add more depth to that, more layers. So, again, it's kind of whatever you like your effect to be. So if I hit play here, you notice it's pretty much the same effect. Now if we go in close and we kind of zoom around, you see how thin that is. That's as thick as that's going to get unless you add a lot more clones. But the trouble is, the more clones you add, the more jumbled up some of your text may get. So you've got this trade-off 50-50. So that's kind of why I chose the object mode technique, just because I found it to be a little bit more flexible and gives you the option of adding some more thickness and some more depth, because I really like being able to adjust that. So there you go. That's the technique. That's both of them. Again, you know, there's lots of different ways to do everything in Cinema 4D. This is just two individual ways of doing this. I know you can do it with fall off on the spline effector. So lots of different ways to go about this. So anyway, enjoy it. Hope you like it, and we'll see you next time.